It's a sensitive issue, taking one's life. I will recount something which happened at one of Ramesh's satsangs, where a boy came. He must have been, I think, in his late 30s, with children. He had children, married, and his mother had brought him. And the thing is that he didn't have really a question for Ramesh, but he was very clear that he felt like taking his life. And Ramesh didn't tell him, please don't. I spoke about this to a therapist who's a friend of mine, and she said that what Ramesh said, which I'll come to, but he didn't say don't take your life. He said, because when we tell someone don't, when you tell anyone don't do something, they end up doing it. So even therapy agrees with this, that it's not appropriate to say please don't, because the ego does not want to hear that at that stage. Instead, what Ramesh did is he asked the man, why do you want to? Let's get to the root of that. And then the satsang, the talk took its course. And I found out many years later that this man is very happy, well settled, family is great, everything is great, and it felt great to see that that had happened. In another instance, someone in Bombay, this came even in the papers, a lady had taken her life, and there was a big article in the paper about it, that her son found her, and my cousin knew this lady, they were friends, and she called me very upset. She was really upset that this had happened, but at the end she said, I can't forgive my friend. So I told my cousin, I said, but where's the question of your forgiveness? Something has happened. We cannot know the pain that person went through. Obviously, there was an extreme amount of pain, so you take that decision. How would we ever know what pain someone else is going through to say something like, I can't forgive that person? I mean, you see, because the suffering is so extreme. And I went and asked Ramesh about this once. I said, this is the situation, and what he said was that according to his concept, everything was predestined. Therefore, even if someone was supposed to end their life, that was also part of the divine plan. But the me is so identified that it feels that it is in charge of life as well. So it feels I can end my life. So it is an extreme form of doership, and that is why the suffering is extreme, because the suffering is based on the doership. So while it is predestined according to his concept, it also reflects a lack of the understanding of life. But even that would be predestined according to Ramesh's concept, because that was the way the divine plan was meant to unfold for that particular individual. But the me and its sense of doership, when it comes to taking one's life, is that, you see, we are not born with a sense of doership. When the baby is born, it is I am. It is not I am so and so. The ego comes in at the age of 1.5 to 2. The sense of separation starts taking over. The ego starts developing. Me and my story starts. that is when the Maya starts. It does start actually from the moment of birth, but with the ego and the sense of doership, that is when the process begins. But we didn't create the ego in the first place. It is the source which created the ego. That is why Ramesh would say that ultimately everything is part of the divine plan. So someone who takes their life cannot be condemned. I have heard many people say, oh, how weak that person was, he could not stand up for his family, I would not have done such a thing, where's your willpower, where's your determination? That is all one object judging the other object for something that object is supposed to have done. Life is life. It is really not my life. If the sage is living with this understanding, it is not the sage living the life as an individual me. Life is flowing like a river. But what we do is we take ownership of that flow, that it should flow this way and not that way. And because it's not flowing the way I want it to flow, I'm suffering. The river, when it flows, if there's a boulder in its path, it wraps itself around the boulder and continues on its journey. It's a natural, spontaneous flow of life, which is the what is in manifestation. But we get trapped in the what should be, what should have been. Things should have been that way, not the way they turned out. Things should be that way. And in that what should be dynamic, we start trying to control this horse called life by pulling the reins here, pulling this there, making sure it runs in this direction, assuming we know best. One of my favorite phrases is, if you want God to laugh, just tell him your plans. So many times our best laid plans get derailed. And Ramesh's favorite was, all you can do is take a decision and then one of three things happen. Sometimes you get what you want, sometimes you don't get what you want, and sometimes what you get is completely unexpected, many times for the worse, sometimes for the better. All we can do is take a decision. All we can do is think what is the best decision to take. Thereafter, what happens is God's will. Thy will be done, as he would quote the 4 words of the Bible.